I want you to listen carefully, because this is not just about love. It's about the way life teaches us through what we fear. The love you avoided, the love you turned away from, is not gone. It lives within you as a quiet ache, a reminder that your heart once had the courage to beat for something greater than your comfort. You pushed it away because it demanded something of you: vulnerability, honesty, surrender. And so you ran. But running never erased what was real. It only became a loss that you can't forget, a ghost that lingers in the corridors of your soul. Understand this. Avoidance is never about the other person. It is always about you. It is a mirror reflecting your hidden fears, the parts of you that are unready to be seen. But here's the profound truth. Every loss is a teacher. Every echo of what you turned away from is a divine signal that you are capable of more, that your heart is capable of deeper resonance than you have allowed yourself to feel. The love you denied was not a mistake. It was a calling. And the ache you feel now is the universe's way of telling you to wake up, to open your heart, and to choose courage over comfort. Regret is not punishment. It is wisdom in disguise. The shadow of the love you avoided is not meant to haunt you endlessly. It exists to guide you, to remind you that every time you shrink from love, you shrink from life itself. Memory is sacred, and the memories of what you lost carry a divine purpose. They are the compass showing you the path back to yourself. You cannot ignore them, for in them lies the power to change your future, to ensure that you do not run again when love arrives. So, take responsibility, face the loss, own the pain, integrate the lesson, allow yourself to feel the depth of what you once denied. And when you do, you will discover something remarkable. The heart you thought was broken is actually expanding, preparing itself for love that aligns with your true essence. You see, love that was once avoided is never wasted. It becomes the soil from which your wisdom, your strength, and your capacity to truly connect will grow. Do not shy away from this truth. The loss you cannot forget is sacred, for it is a reflection of your highest potential, calling you to rise above fear and step fully into the love you are meant to give and receive. When we talk about avoidance, we often mistake it for rejection of the other person, but that is a surface misunderstanding. The truth is far deeper. Avoidance is never about the love itself. It is a reflection, a mirror showing us the parts of ourselves that we have not yet faced. It is the silent language of fear, whispering in our ears, urging us to stay small, to stay safe, to stay hidden. The love that arrives in your life is not always easy, and that is precisely why it triggers avoidance. It touches nerves you have long numbed. It demands a vulnerability that feels unfamiliar and risky. It asks you to step into a space where control is not guaranteed, where outcomes are uncertain, and where your heart might be exposed. And so, instead of leaning into the discomfort, we instinctively step back, creating distance between ourselves and the very thing that could expand our souls. This avoidance is a mirror because it reflects not the character of the other person, but the unresolved patterns within us. It shows us where we are still wounded, where our insecurities live, where our trust has been fractured. The love you shy away from often mirrors the growth you have yet to embrace. It confronts you with questions that are uncomfortable, yet necessary. Do I trust myself to be enough? Can I allow someone to see me fully without hiding parts of who I am? Am I willing to risk rejection in order to experience connection? These are not easy questions, and the instinct to avoid is the mind's way of trying to protect the ego. But here's the divine paradox. The very fear that drives you away is also the gateway to transformation. When you see avoidance in this light, it loses its power as a tool of shame and becomes a tool of insight. It is not proof of weakness. It is proof that your soul is being tested, stretched, and called to maturity. Every moment of hesitation, every step back from intimacy, is an invitation to examine the beliefs you hold about yourself, about love, and about trust. The person you avoid is simply a reflection of the courage you have yet to summon. The situations you shy away from are not punishments. They are mirrors, showing you the depth of your own unresolved fears. Fear itself is not the enemy. Fear is the signal, the compass pointing toward the areas in your life where growth is required. When you avoid love, you are not failing. You are being given a sacred opportunity to recognize what has held you back. Avoidance is an unspoken teacher asking you to step into discomfort, to embrace vulnerability, and to meet your fears with awareness rather than flight. It calls you to take responsibility for your heart, to recognize that the power to engage, to connect, and to experience love is not external. It resides within you. Every time you resist love, it is an echo of past experiences, a voice from a place where your trust was broken, where rejection stung, and where the heart learned to protect itself. But here is the profound truth. The more you avoid, the longer that reflection lingers, the more it shapes your present and your future. Love that is avoided becomes a teacher, not because it punishes, but because it illuminates the fears still hidden in the depths of your being. To recognize avoidance as a mirror is to step into a place of self-honesty. It requires courage to look closely at what drives your retreat, to see the patterns, and to acknowledge the fears you have carried silently. When you do, you begin to understand that love is never the enemy. Fear is merely a signal, a guidepost, pointing toward your next level of growth, calling you to release control and to allow your heart to expand beyond the boundaries you once thought were safe. Avoidance becomes a teacher, a mirror, and ultimately a doorway to a deeper, more authentic connection with yourself and others. Unrealized love has a way of leaving a mark on the soul that is subtle yet profound. It is the love that could have been, the connection you hesitated to explore, the heart you never fully opened to, the moments you let slip through your fingers. At first, it feels like nothing has happened, as if the opportunity simply passed. But over time, the truth becomes undeniable. What you avoided does not vanish. Instead, it transforms into a quiet, persistent longing, an echo that lingers in the chambers of your heart, reminding you of what was possible and what you allowed yourself to miss. This longing is not random or meaningless. It is sacred, a reflection of the depth of your capacity to love and to be loved. Longing emerges when potential meets hesitation. When love is avoided, it is not denied. It is deferred. The universe presents a gift, and when we shrink away, that gift does not disappear. It waits patiently, lingering in memory and imagination. It becomes a ghost of what could have been, teaching us in ways that words or rational thought cannot. This is the subtle power of unrealized love. It awakens awareness. The longing it produces is not meant to torment. It is meant to illuminate. It shows us the spaces within ourselves that remain closed, the vulnerability we have yet to embrace, and the courage we have yet to summon. There is a rhythm to this process. Love, when avoided, plants seeds in the soul. The longing that grows is a natural response, a gentle insistence from life that you acknowledge your own heart. You may try to fill the emptiness with distractions, work, socializing, or other fleeting connections. But the memory of what you let go of has its own gravitational pull. It draws your attention inward, toward reflection, toward understanding, toward truth. This longing is not a weakness. It is an invitation. It is an invitation. It invites you to confront the patterns of avoidance and hesitation that have shaped your emotional life. It calls you to ask the questions you avoided. Why did I turn away? What am I afraid of losing? What am I afraid of gaining? The paradox of unrealized love is that its absence becomes a presence. Its emptiness becomes a presence that shapes the way you move, the way you relate, and the way you perceive intimacy. Every time you remember what you avoided, you are given an opportunity to learn, not just about love itself, but about yourself. Longing teaches patience, teaches introspection, teaches discernment. It asks you to reconcile with your own choices and recognize that the love you avoided was never random. It arrived precisely to reflect your readiness, or lack thereof, to embrace its full potential. What is important to understand is that longing is transformative. It is not merely nostalgia or regret. It is a spiritual signal. It urges you to step deeper into awareness, to integrate the lessons of avoidance, and to cultivate the courage to meet love fully when it appears again. It reminds you that the heart is expansive, capable of holding both joy and sorrow, presence and absence, fulfillment and yearning. Unrealized love, through its lingering effect, teaches the soul to honor depth over convenience, commitment over fear, and courage over comfort. In this way, what as once avoided becomes an essential guide. The longing it creates is sacred feedback, a compass pointing toward your next evolution. It is the universe's gentle insistence that you do not ignore your heart's capacity, that you do not shrink from connection, and that you remember the lessons of the past so that your future love can be richer, deeper, and more aligned with your true self. The love you once avoided transforms into a teacher, a mirror, and a call to awaken, to move from hesitation into presence, from avoidance into courage, and from longing into readiness, to fully embrace the gift of love when it returns. Regret is often seen as a painful emotion, something to be avoided, something to push away. Yet when we pause and observe its essence, we realize that regret is not punishment. It is guidance. It is a teacher disguised as discomfort, a divine messenger pointing to the lessons we failed to embrace when love first came near. The love we avoided, the words we left unsaid, the courage we withheld, these are the seeds of regret. And yet, within this experience lies a sacred opportunity, the chance to awaken to truth, to understand our patterns, and to grow beyond the limitations we imposed on ourselves. Regret arrives quietly at first, almost imperceptibly. It whispers in the corners of our mind, in fleeting thoughts of what if or if only. At first, we may resist it, believing that it is a weakness, a sign of failure, or a reminder of loss. But in reality, it is an essential mirror reflecting the choices we made, or avoided, without full awareness. Every moment of hesitation, every time we chose comfort over courage, every time we pulled away from love in fear of vulnerability, becomes a lesson embedded in the soul. Regret does not exist to shame us. It exists to illuminate what our heart needs to confront, to heal, and to honor. To understand regret as a teacher is to see the wisdom in discomfort. The ache of what was lost is not meaningless. It is a call to examine ourselves honestly, to question why we resisted what was sacred, and to recognize the fears and insecurities that drove us to withdraw. Perhaps we feared rejection. Perhaps we doubted our worthiness. Perhaps we were unprepared to meet the depth of connection that love demanded. Regret allows us to uncover these truths, not to dwell in self-blame, but to awaken to the reality that awareness is the first step toward transformation. Regret also teaches us about timing and presence. Often we avoid love because we are not ready, because the circumstances, our inner state, or our emotional maturity are not aligned. And when the consequences of avoidance manifest, regret reminds us that life is precious, that opportunities are finite, and that love cannot be postponed indefinitely without consequence. It brings into focus the importance of being present, of embracing vulnerability, and of saying yes to connection when it calls us. The lessons of regret are lessons of responsibility for our choices, for our hearts, and for the way we engage with life itself. Furthermore, regret is a teacher of empathy. When we look back on the love we avoided, we begin to understand the other side of the story, the one we never fully engaged with. We see the here, that was willing, the presence that waited, the patience that was offered. In this reflection, we develop compassion for both ourselves and others, recognizing that avoidance affects not only our path, but also the lives of those we encounter. Regret opens the door to humility, reminding us that love is never solely about desire. It is about presence, awareness, and integrity. Ultimately, regret calls us to action. It is not meant to anchor us in the past, but to serve as a guidepost for the future. It invites us to learn, to grow, and to commit to deeper courage in the next encounter with love. When we honor regret as a teacher, we transform it from a source of pain into a source of wisdom. We understand that the love we avoided was not lost entirely. It was a lesson in disguise, a mirror reflecting the areas of ourselves we must nurture and expand. By embracing regret, we reclaim the power to act with awareness, to embrace vulnerability, and to step boldly into the love and life that await us when we no longer turn away from what our hearts truly desire. Every choice we make in love leaves an imprint, but the choices we avoid leave a shadow. This shadow is not merely absence. It is a presence that lingers quietly, shaping the way we see ourselves, others, and the world. When we avoid love, we think we are protecting ourselves, keeping our hearts safe from vulnerability or pain. Yet the truth is that avoidance does not erase connection. It casts a shadow that follows us, subtle at first, but persistent, coloring our perceptions and influencing our actions long after the moment has passed. The shadow of what we avoided is a silent teacher, revealing the parts of our hearts we have not fully embraced, the fears we have yet to confront, and the depth of the love we once shied away from. The shadow exists because avoidance is never neutral. When we step back from love, we create a vacuum that cannot remain empty. It becomes a mirror reflecting our hesitations, insecurities, and unresolved emotions. The love we declined or neglected does not vanish. It transforms into a lingering presence in our emotional landscape. Over time, this shadow can manifest as longing, regret, or a quiet sense of incompleteness. It is a constant reminder that what we avoided carried significance, not only for the other person, but for the growth of our own soul. The shadow is the unspoken truth. Love that is avoided still has power, and it waits for acknowledgement, understanding, and integration. The presence of this shadow is a call to awareness. It asks us to look honestly at the reasons behind our avoidance. Did we fear being vulnerable? Did we doubt our worthiness? Did we lack the courage to meet love on its own terms? These are not questions meant to punish us. They are invitations to examine the unseen corners of our hearts, to bring light to what we have hidden, and to take responsibility for the ways we have held ourselves back. The shadow shows us that avoidance is never a solution. It is a postponement of growth. It teaches us that love is not just about joy and comfort, but about courage, authenticity, and the willingness to face the parts of ourselves that resist connection. Moreover, the shadow has a transformative quality. Though it may feel heavy or haunting, it is also a guide. Its presence is a subtle prompt to embrace introspection, to cultivate emotional literacy, and to expand the capacity of our hearts. By observing the shadow, we begin to understand patterns that repeat across relationships, tendencies to withdraw, and fears that influence our decisions. In this way, the shadow is not an enemy. It is a teacher, offering insight into the inner work necessary for future love to be approached with greater awareness and courage. Importantly, the shadow also carries a sacred reminder. Love avoided is never entirely lost. It lingers because it has a purpose, a lesson meant for us. The emptiness it leaves is not punishment. It is preparation. It encourages reflection, cultivates discernment, and nurtures the strength to engage more fully when the opportunity for connection arises again. The shadow is a spiritual signal, reminding us that avoidance creates gaps in our experience of life and love, and that only through conscious attention and inner work can we reclaim the fullness that was deferred. When we confront this shadow, we release its weight. Acknowledging what we avoided allows us to integrate the lessons into our lives, transforming regret into wisdom and hesitation into courage. The shadow, once recognized, becomes a bridge between past avoidance and future openness. It reminds us that the love we once turned away from was not meaningless. It was a mirror, a teacher, and a guide to the depths of our own hearts. By embracing this truth, we step closer to authentic connection, to the courage to love fully, and to the ability to recognize and honor what is truly sacred when it appears again. Love is not merely an emotion or a fleeting connection. It is a divine invitation. It comes to us not just to fill our days with joy or companionship, but to awaken the parts of ourselves that remain dormant, untested, and hidden. When love enters our lives, it calls us to a higher level of consciousness, asking us to confront fear, embrace vulnerability, and expand the capacity of our hearts. To avoid love is to turn away from this sacred call, to deny not only another person but also the opportunity for profound personal evolution. Every encounter with love carries a spiritual dimension, and those we resist are reflections of the lessons and growth that life is asking us to engage with. The divine nature of love lies in its transformative power. It meets us exactly where we are, in our brokenness, our insecurities, and our hesitations, and it asks us to rise above them. Love invites us to shed pretense and embrace authenticity, to remove the masks that hide our true selves. In its presence, we are challenged to let go of control, to trust in the unknown, and to risk being seen fully, sometimes in ways that feel terrifying yet liberating. When we avoid love, we deny ourselves this sacred process. We turn away from the lessons it offers, from the mirror it holds up to our soul, and from the chance to align more closely with our truest selves. Love is also a call to courage. It is not passive. It asks for engagement, attention, and conscious choice. To embrace love is to step into a space where vulnerability and risk coexist with beauty and joy. It asks us to confront our old patterns, our tendencies to shrink, withdraw, or protect ourselves, and to choose openness instead. Avoidance, then, is a refusal to answer the call. It is a retreat from the opportunity to grow, a hesitation that limits the depth of connection we are capable of experiencing. The love we avoid is never meaningless. It is a teacher reminding us that courage and vulnerability are the currency of authentic living. Moreover, love is a divine invitation because it aligns us with the greater rhythms of life. It is not solely about desire or fulfillment. It is about evolution. Love tests our patience, strengthens our empathy, and awakens our capacity to hold space for another's journey alongside our own. Each relationship, each connection, each encounter carries the potential to teach us something profound about ourselves, about trust, and about the sacred interconnection that binds all hearts. Avoidance interrupts this flow, leaving us with echoes of what could have been and prompting the soul to ask, are you ready to receive fully, or will you continue to turn away from what is sacred? The divine invitation of love also extends beyond romantic or personal relationships. It is an invitation to experience life with greater depth, to engage with the world in ways that reflect the fullness of our hearts. The moments of avoidance, when we step back from love, serve as reminders of what it means to engage consciously and with intention. They encourage us to examine the ways we resist intimacy, authenticity, and connection, not to shame us, but to awaken our awareness. The more we recognize love as a sacred call, the more we understand that each act of avoidance is an opportunity to reflect, learn, and prepare ourselves for the next encounter. When we finally honor love as a divine invitation, avoidance loses its power. We begin to see that love is never merely about desire or convenience. It is about transformation. It is a spiritual practice, a doorway into the deepest parts of ourselves, and a reminder that true growth comes through engagement, not retreat. The love we once avoided is not lost. It has shaped us, prepared us, and taught us to recognize the sacred when it returns. By embracing love as an invitation, we step into courage, presence, and a life that reflects the full potential of our hearts. Memory is more than a record of what has passed. It is a living force within us, shaping the way we perceive love, connection, and ourselves. The love we once avoided does not vanish into nothingness. It resides in memory, quietly influencing our thoughts, emotions, and even our choices. Every glance, every word left unsaid, every moment of hesitation is preserved in the fabric of our consciousness. This memory holds power because it acts as both a teacher and a guide, reminding us of what we once had, what we turned away from, and the depth of our capacity to feel. It is not a punishment for the heart, but a sacred instrument for awakening awareness and inspirem growth. The power of memory lies in its ability to hold lessons beyond what the mind can immediately comprehend. We may try to distract ourselves, to rationalize our avoidance, or to push the experience to the edges of our awareness, but memory refuses to be silenced. It carries the echoes of feelings that were denied, the longing of connections postponed, and the unspoken truths that we were too afraid to face. Over time, this stored energy begins to assert itself, not as mere nostalgia, but as an internal compass, signaling what matters to us, what we value, and what we must confront to live more fully. Memory becomes a teacher, whispering the truths that avoidance sought to hide. Every recalled moment, every emotional echo, carries a hidden message. It reminds us that love, once present, has an enduring impact on the soul. The power of memory is that it allows us to reflect, to revisit choices with clarity, and to recognize the patterns that influence our relationships. We see where fear led us to step back, where hesitation caused us to miss opportunities, and where avoidance created space for longing and regret. Memory gives us the rare chance to learn from the past, to honor what we once ignored, and to prepare ourselves for future connections with greater awareness and courage. Memory also holds the power to deepen our empathy and compassion. When we remember the love we avoided, we see not only our own hesitations, but also the heart that was ready, waiting, and open. We come to understand that our choices ripple outward, affecting not only ourselves, but also those we encounter. This awareness fosters humility, reminding us that love is never just about desire. It is about presence, integrity, and the willingness to meet another soul fully. The lessons embedded in memory encourage us to approach future opportunities with intention, conscious engagement, and a willingness to honor both our own hearts and those of others. In addition, memory is a bridge between the past and the present. It ensures that the love we once avoided is never wasted. It preserves the energy, the lessons, and the potential that still exists within us. The longing and reflection it evokes are not meant to trap us in regret, but to guide us toward transformation. When we honor memory as a powerful force, we stop denying the impact of past experiences and begin to integrate them into our understanding of self and life. We recognize that every moment avoided carries insight, every lost opportunity carries guidance, and every remembered feeling carries wisdom. Ultimately, memory holds power because it preserves the sacredness of what we once had and encourages us to act differently in the future. It teaches us that avoidance does not erase experience. It reframes it, creating space for growth, reflection, and preparation for the love we are capable of embracing fully. By listening to memory, by honoring its lessons, we reclaim the guidance that was always present, and we allow ourselves to step forward with courage, clarity, and a deeper understanding of what it truly means to love and be loved. The love we once avoided is not gone. It is alive in memory, shaping our hearts and preparing us for the depth of connection that still awaits. Healing is not a passive process. It does not come from waiting for time to erase pain, or from hoping that life will rearrange itself to our favor. True healing requires ownership. Ownership of our choices, our fears, our avoidance, and the consequences that flow from them. When love is avoided, the heart bears a silent burden. The echo of what could have been, the regret of moments not embraced, and the weight of lessons left unlearned. To heal from such loss, to move beyond the shadow of avoidance, one must confront the truth honestly and courageously. Ownership is the recognition that the power to change, to grow, and to integrate experience lies within our own hands, not in the actions of others or the whims of circumstance. Ownership begins with acknowledgement. It requires us to stop running from the truth of our past behavior and to face the impact of our avoidance. This is not an exercise in self-punishment, but an act of self-honesty. We must look clearly at the ways we held ourselves back, the moments we shrank from vulnerability, and the opportunities we allowed to slip away. Each instance of avoidance carries a lesson, and each lesson contains a gift, but only if we are willing to clear. Aim it. The act of acknowledgement awakens awareness, and awareness is the first step toward transformation. Without it, healing remains incomplete, and the patterns of fear and avoidance are likely to repeat. Ownership also requires responsibility. It means taking full accountability for the choices we made, without excuses or blame. The love we avoided, the connections we deferred, and the hearts we unintentionally hurt, all of this falls within the scope of our responsibility. To deny it, to place the burden elsewhere, is to deny ourselves the chance to grow. True healing comes when we embrace the truth that our choices shape our emotional landscape, and that only through conscious engagement can we create different outcomes in the future. Responsibility empowers us. It transforms regret from a source of shame into a catalyst for learning, growth, and self-mastery. Another dimension of ownership is emotional courage. To truly heal, we must allow ourselves to feel fully the sadness, the longing, the grief of what was lost. Avoidance often stems from a desire to shield ourselves from these emotions, but shielding only postpones the necessary work of the heart. Emotional courage is the willingness to sit with discomfort, to confront the pain that arises from our own choices, and to explore it without judgment. By doing so, we transform the emotional residue of avoidance into insight, understanding, and resilience. Healing becomes an active process, fueled by the honesty and bravery of facing our inner truths. Ownership also involves integration. Healing is not merely about feeling better. It is about weaving the lessons of avoidance into the fabric of our being. It is the conscious act of examining patterns, recognizing triggers, and cultivating new ways of relating to love, to vulnerability, and to ourselves. By taking ownership, we reclaim the narrative of our here, acknowledging that what we once ran from can now become a source of wisdom. This integration ensures that past avoidance does not dictate our future, but instead informs it with clarity, intention, and awareness. Finally, ownership leads to liberation. When we embrace responsibility for our avoidance, acknowledge our fears, and integrate the lessons, we release the hold that regret and longing have on us. We reclaim the freedom to love authentically without the weight of unhealed wounds shaping our choices. Healing through ownership is transformative. It allows us to step fully into connection, to engage with life courageously, and to honor the sacredness of our hearts. The love we once avoided becomes no longer a source of haunting, but a foundation for growth, a teacher that guided us toward wisdom and a bridge to the deeper, more conscious love that we are now ready to receive and give. Thank you for trusting me with your heart and your journey. May every lesson lead you closer to the love you deserve. Goodbye for now, and may your courage to feel deeply guide you to connection, growth, and endless possibilities.